Hi everybody, welcome to quarantine day 10. Art in quarantine, what a thing. What an opportunity. I was reminded today by another art teacher who's in the States, that this space and this time is really such a privilege. So let's use this time to be creative unto the Lord. Let me pray to start us off, and then we'll go over all the materials, and you probably know the drill by now. All right, Lord, thanks so much for this day. Thank you that sun has peeked out of the sky and has given us just a reminder of your faithfulness. I pray as we make art today that we would be praising your name through the materials that we use and the way that we create, God, that it would be a blessing to you. We give you this time, we give you this space, and we're excited to know you better through it. In Jesus' name I pray, amen. Awesome. Well, thanks so much for joining me. Today we are doing watercolor sculptures. Now, I'm sure if any of you actually read the title of that, you were thinking, well, this ought to be good, because I have no idea what that means. I don't know if anybody knew me in my past life. I'm trained as a potter, and so sculpture is really my sweet spot. And so I thought I would get you an opportunity to kind of peek into my brain, my artistic brain, for a little bit and show you how I engage with 2D materials in a three-dimensional way. So that's what we're going to do today. Let's review some materials that we need to have on hand. This list is a little bit long, so sorry about that. You need a couple sheets of paper. 4 is probably good. It just probably depends what your preference is. So a couple sheets of blank paper there. You're going to need a set of watercolors. So I'm into the blues and greens, but any colors will do. I recommend having at least 3 tones to work with. That'll be good for today. You're going to need a paintbrush, so something like this. I'm using one with a bigger brush end because of the painting we're going to be doing, but it's totally up to you and how detailed you'd like to be. You're going to need a jar of water. Or something that you can, a water source of some kind. And let's see, you're also going to need some scissors, a little bit of tape, and a couple paper towels. I've got a couple right here just on hand, just in case things get a little messy. Watercolors are always dicey. And then lastly, a black pen. And I skipped a very important thing on that list, which if you were reading through, you probably were like, I'm sorry, what was that, Megan? You're gonna need a hairdryer today. That will help speed up our process. Definitely sped up mine today preparing for this. So we'll use that as a way to kind of keep our time together fruitful. That being said, let's jump right into a painting. So we'll get started here. So here is the plan. We are going to essentially take one of these blank pieces of paper that we have, and we are going to paint with water on the top half. Just water. Nothing, no paint, no ink, nothing, just water. So I'll show you kind of on this sample, and I'm sure you'll get the hang of it quite quickly here. Okay, so here we are. I'm just taking my brush with water, and I'm just gonna quickly sort of paint over this half. Doesn't have to be anything orderly. Again, it's water, so nothing fancy. We're just kind of getting the paper wet. Get to all the ways to those edges there, like that. Great. So we're going to do this with each of our papers, but water dries pretty quick, at least where I live. So we'll take care of this paper first. Next, we are going to get this top ribbon of the paper also moisturized with some water, leaving a little bit of space in between here. And I'm just going to kind of lead this down. Kind of hard to see when I'm painting with water, but hopefully you can see with my brush strokes. Okay, cool. So again, I'm just going to kind of solidify this border up here, making sure that this top ribbon for sure is wet. Now is when the fun part comes. So what we're going to do is we're going to grab our brush. We are going to saturate one of our watercolors. Here, I'm going to start with a cobalt so you can start seeing what I'm doing here. And we're going to lightly tap and kind of brush it on the top ribbon of paper here. I'm going to try to just leave the pigment as condensed as I can and let the water kind of feather it on the very top of the paper. It's doing it pretty naturally. So if your ink or your paint is feathering, you're on the right track. Normally in watercolors, that's like blasphemy, but that's exactly what we want today. Okay. Awesome. Now here comes the fun part. I'm going to grab my brush. I still have a little bit of that blue on the top. I'm going to dip it back into my water, and I'm going to just do a stroke across the top. And then I'm going to flip my paper and let the water run. Just like this. Yep, let the water run. You'll see it kind of hugs this border. I can tap it down, sort of like similar to our watercolor drip paintings that we did, but we want it to drip down. Now, because I wanted to make sure some of this blue stayed on this top ribbon, now I can take my brush and fill in the connections between these two, the two wet sections of the paper. Okay, and then we'll start seeing the waterfall effect of these pigments going all the way down the paper, just like this. Lovely. All right, so this is exactly what we want. I'm gonna take this paper, I'm gonna put it aside, we're gonna grab our next one, and then we'll continue onward this process. We'll hit the hairdryer in just a minute. Again, this is a good time if you got some blue ink or you got some watercolor that made friends with your table, clean that off so that you're keeping your papers, the colors segmented correctly. All right, I'm gonna grab my next piece of paper. You can probably guess what we're gonna do. We are gonna get this whole thing wet. Again, working our way to the edges so that when we do introduce pigment, it really has the ability to spread where it would like to on the paper, and giving it that freedom is really helpful for us as the artists because we let the materials do the work. I am gonna fill the entire paper for this one with water, so we'll have a little bit of a different effect from the first one. Okay, we are looking good. How's yours looking? Isn't it fun to paint with water? It's like invisible paint. Did any of you ever do that? Painted with lemon juice or whatever it was called, and it would disappear and show up under a cool light or something? I did that a lot growing up. Okay, so here we are. Got this wet piece of paper. Again, we're gonna pick a color from your palette. I'm probably gonna move over to the neighbor color blue here. Saturate the paint just enough. And again, we're gonna just do the taps. Oh, you can't see me. There we go. Just do taps on the very, very top of our paper here, allowing that pigment to really find its home wherever it decides is a good spot. There we go. It's drying quickly here. Spain is always a wild card with humidity and things that dry. I remember when I first got here in August, my laundry dried in like 15 minutes because we don't have, most of us don't have dryers here, and I was just blown out of my mind. And then in the winter sometimes it takes like 4 days, so what a variety. Okay, so I've got the top piece of my paper here really blotted with that same feathered approach that we had. And for this one, I am gonna again dip my brush in the very top, add another stroke of water near the top of my paper, and let it drip, just like that. The nice thing about this is that you get these really nice gradient of different tones, and then again, the pigment sort of spreads out. It becomes a really nice kind of overlay of tones. Okay, I'm gonna do 3 pieces of paper today. So if you're just joining us, we are saturating our piece of paper, adding some pigment on top, and letting the pigment run down the paper. I'm gonna set this aside. We'll hit that with the hairdryer in just a minute, and we'll grab our last one. You know the drill. Get this whole paper completely soaked with water. Awesome. I love the hair drying part because it's just amazing to watch it so fast. Okay, we are getting close here. All right, we've really got this paper nice and wet. It's ready to handle whatever pigment we decide. Let's see here. Ooh, I'm gonna go with one of these greens here and mix up these two to get some interesting tones. Okay. Again, we're gonna start with the very top of our paper, do that same sort of blotting butterfly approach on top. Okay, we're getting that tone really balanced between the two. I kind of love having a little bit of variety. And then I like to kind of fade off as I am in the transition line between those two. Okay, awesome. again, get your brush wet, soak the top of your paper, let that be your ribbon of water, and we get to watch the magic happen. Oh, so beautiful. I love seeing what all these tones do when they mix. Really nice. So I'm going to shake this off, continue to get those last droplets off my paper, and then we're going to grab out that hair dryer and we're going to get these dried real quick so we can continue on today. So here we are. I'm going to just quick move this mat, get some of this excess water cleared up. Awesome. How are we doing? We got a couple pages, at least 2 done. I do 3 so I have options, but you can do it with 2. Okay. So I'm going to grab this hair dryer out. Things might get a little noisy here for just a second, but basically I'm just going to take the top of this hair dryer. I'm going to apply some, not direct pressure, but just let it kind of sit and coast on the very top of my paper. It starts drying pretty quickly, which is really nice. Be sure to get that middle section, give that some extra attention because the water kind of condenses in the middle there sometimes. If it's got a little wrinkle, that's great. Sometimes there's moisture underneath, so I like to just get the table so I can continue onward. All right, this is mostly dry. I'm going to grab my next sheet of paper. We'll grab the first one. It's almost dry anyway, but we'll just finish it up. I love the borders on this one. It'll add nice variety when we start working with them. Okay. Cool. Gonna get the last of this dried up here. All right, mostly dry. We're looking good with that one. I'm gonna grab my last paper. This one got pretty soaked, so this might take me an extra minute. This one really feathered these tones really nicely into this bottom white part. I think we're going to be really excited when we get to look at them. Woo! Paper flying away from me. Awesome. So cool. We're just about done here. Hopefully yours are at pace or maybe even faster than mine. It might be drier where you live. Okay. Contrary to popular belief, I did not just dry my hair, I just dried all the papers, but hey, it works for both things and we are grateful. So if you're just catching up with us, we've got these 3 papers. Watercolored and dried. I've got some blue tones, some green tones, and we're going to mix and match here with our sculpture. So let me give you just a little sample of what's to come. So if you're just joining us, you know where we're headed. This is our future. So we are going to cut these papers into strips, and we're going to sort of work and weave them into a paper that's going to serve as our base. And then eventually this could be mounted on the wall. If I could leave my house, I would definitely get like some cardstock or something that I could mount this on that'd be a little bit more durable. So if you do have something like that at home, or even the back of a cereal box or something, piece of cardboard, that would help to kind of keep these pieces securely adhered without a little bit of wobble like I have. This is the future we're going towards. So let me give you the next step for how to get there. Here we are. I'm going to start with any of your papers, but I'm going to start with one that's the driest, and that's this blue one. So here we are. I'm going to take this sheet, and I'm going to cut my paper into strips like this. I see a little bit of water hanging out on my table here. Okay. So again, I've got it on my scissors too. Wow, watercolors get everywhere. All right, so we're gonna take our scissors and just sort of cut them into strips like this. You should get probably 10 of these, depends how wide yours end up being. Okay. No need to worry about the rough edges if you rip this out of a sketchbook. We'll deal with those a little bit later. Some of them you won't even see. Okay. Awesome. Now, if your paper has a little bit of wrinkle, that's actually going to be an asset to us because within sculpture work, we always want to use the textures of the materials that they come with. I think being a potter, I really love textures that have a lot of grit or grain when I'm working and making artwork, but even if they don't have that sort of wobble or sand-like texture, paper, when it has a little bit of attitude, I find is much easier to work with. Okay, we're almost through here. Starting to look like pieces of the sky ripped up from your view, probably. Okay, great. So I've cut up this paper into some kind of skeleton over here. I'm gonna put these pieces gently to the side, and I'm gonna continue with bringing this mat over here, kind of keep me focused. And then I'm gonna pick a piece of paper, that other blank sheet that you had, grab this one, and we'll use this as the base for our work today. I'm gonna flip it this way so you can kind of see from this side, and then I'll rotate in just a couple minutes when it becomes relevant. So now is a good time to grab out that tape. And what I would recommend you do is take a long strip of tape like this, rip it off, and slowly separate it into small chunks like this. I just kind of stick them on my table. Makes it easy when I'm in the weaving mode. I don't have to stop and rip a bunch of tape up. Okay, for those of you who don't love having extra things on your table, this might bug you, but for me, I think it helps the process go a little bit smoother. So here we are, just getting our tape ready to go. Okay, lovely. Doing great. Okay, so here, let me show you how we're gonna start here. What I recommend is taking your paper and picking a corner to sort of begin your work with. I like to pick a strand that has an interesting amount of texture, but also enough contrast between the colors that it's really gonna stand out. So I'm gonna pick this one, and I'm gonna set this corner securely with a piece of tape underneath it, and then we'll play with this corner and I'll show you how we kind of begin the weaving process. So grab one of these small pieces of tape, create a little bubble like this, and we're going to stick it in this very corner, and we're going to adhere that piece right on top. Should be like this so far. We're going to, from there, we are going to take a little bit of time to bend and kind of see where the grooves are naturally on this piece, and then we'll adhere it back onto the paper. I really like how this one really naturally kind of goes the whole length of the paper, and I kind of like this small arch that we have. So I'm gonna keep it like this, and I'm gonna grab another piece of tape, create another bubble, and adhere it right beneath this point. The awesome part about starting in a corner is that we have a good place to kind of grow from. And especially when it comes to sculpture work, knowing where you started and where the supports are sort of really helps your work remain both cohesive, but also it keeps it organized in some sort of way. You know where you've been and you know where you have yet to go. So here we are. Again, we're gonna work on varying the different textures and colors that come through. So I'm gonna reverse this piece, and I'm gonna create maybe a taller loop on this side, securing it over here and down here. You find a piece that works for you. If you wanna do a different balance or order to that, that's great too. At this point, everyone's pieces probably look really different, so I'm excited to see what you guys come up with. Okay, so from the side, you can see these arches are different. If you were to look at it straight on, this is the type of texture we're looking at. We'll go over at the end and we'll cut off some of these extra fringy sides to create really nice clean lines around the bottom. Here we are. Okay, so grab another piece that is intriguing to you, and I'm gonna start again by reversing it so that I've got this sort of blue movement sneaking through my paper. Same thing,
Gonna adhere it over here, and then I'm gonna try to create a really tall loop on this side. Grab that piece of tape, get a bubble, and adhere it. Great. And then I'm gonna pick this one up, sort of like this, and adhere it where it makes sense on the bottom. Okay, I wanna move that base point there. Okay, cool. So again, we're just gonna keep snaking these pieces in and out down this entire paper. So you pick whatever piece looks good to you next. I'm gonna just keep inverting the colors back and forth. And hopefully we'll find that we've got some really cool ideas at the end. Remember, we're just using that first colored paper. We'll use the other one to come back later and to create some contrast. The nice thing about actually the view that you have is you can see the different levels that I have within this piece of sculpture. But then when you look at them straight on, they really start to talk in a different way, which I think is one of the awesome parts about sculpture. There's so many ways to look at it. So as you are creating, be sure to peel back and look this way, but then also rise above and look on top. Okay. Great, great, great. I have round corners on the edge of mine, so I'm gonna cut those off just so that they're nice and clean. Okay, great. Let me use that tape that we set aside. I keep forgetting and almost using my own on this side. Great. Okay. You guys, this is so fun. I feel like I'm building like a reptile, like skeleton of some sort. It's super cool, minus the scary reptile part. Definitely not a huge animal person. I can appreciate them from afar, but that's why I like zoos, because I can appreciate them from afar, but I don't have to touch them. Sometimes those like lizards and stuff freak me out. This seems like a safe distance. Okay. All right. So we're just about halfway through the paper. I am going to, again, I'm going to move that. I want this to go somewhere else. Okay. So here I'm going to take just about this far. I'm going to take a break. So take a line break and continue this pattern the rest of the way. I've got about 5 more strips left, and that's just about enough space to match that. Looking good. How's yours coming? Turn to your neighbor, see how it's going. I'm gonna grab a little bit more tape here. Keep my supply for those little bubble tapes always at max capacity. Awesome. I sat on the balcony that we have in my apartment today, and I saw someone walking outside, and I said hi to him, and I was so giddy about it. It was hilarious because I haven't seen someone who's, not living at my house in a very long time. It was just bizarre. I'm sure he's my neighbor, and he's like going back to his family, like, this random girl said hi to me. But you know what? When you're quarantined, you got to look forward to those things. Okay. Great. Again, you can see that break that I took between these two here. Great. Again, keeping the variety with the different levels that we have. I'm sure yours looks awesome. Cool. Again, keeping that a good variety between where the blue or whatever color you have is on those strips of paper is going to be your friend in this process. It's going to make it feel really natural as you look from a distance. And then this last piece, I'm just being sure that I square it with the corner here, just like that. And then as I adhere it down here, being sure that it lines up with this bottom line of my paper. It's those little things that I feel like make artwork just so clean and nice to look at. Okay, so here we are. We've got this really fun set of textures so far. We've got this blue cascading through our piece. We've got a little bit of visual break, and then the blue continues and is kind of scattered near the bottom. What you're gonna do now is cut up that other piece of paper that you labored away at. I'm gonna pick this darker blue one, but you can pick whatever you would like. Again, you probably know the drill more than I do. I'm gonna cut off those edges there and then continue in those strips that we were doing earlier. Okay. Great. I love adding these next because they make the piece really come together, I think. And we actually get to work on some weaving skills, so never opposed to that. Okay. Cutting up these last two here. Maybe you're faster at scissors than I am, but we'll just keep going. Okay, I've got these blue tabs all over the place. And this next part of the process probably is one of my favorite parts because we get to kind of begin to weave these two stories together. So when we were watercoloring, we had two different pages that were completely separate with different tones, and they looked great on their own papers. But one of the awesome things about this project is that we get to decide how those two colors and how those two stories interact. So let's begin to just kind of play a little bit and see what we can do. I'm going to turn it this way, and then let me see if I can prop this up a little bit so you can see a little bit more of what I'm thinking here. Let's see. Cool. Let's try that. Oh, my tape's underneath there. I'm going to need that. Okay, so we've got our paper. Finish up putting those last strips on there if you are still working on color number 1. Grab some more tape here for bubbles, and we're going to look and find a strip from the second piece of paper that you find interesting. I think I might pick this one that has sort of this blue dot at the bottom and then actually a lot of white space because it'll begin to sort of bleed these two stories together in a way that's pretty natural. So I'm going to start and I'm going to place this paper on the very corner on top of where my other paper was. Again, I'm going to grab just a little bit of tape here. We're going to adhere that. Don't worry about those rough edges coming off the bottom. That's exactly fine. That's exactly the way we want it because later we can come back and we can trim those off. Now I'm going to take this paper and I am going to weave it in a similar way that we had before. And I also can use it I can curl it underneath. I could put it diagonal through a couple of these so that it looks like this when you look at it. I think I might try that and grab a piece of tape. One of the ways that I do this is just by taking the very edge, putting this bubble on it, and as I weave, find the base of the paper. Wherever makes sense, make sure this is how I want it, and then just adhere it down and apply some pressure. So we've added our first contrasting color there. It's got a lot of attitude, but I really like it so far. Grab another strip of paper that looks interesting. Add a little bubble of tape beneath there. Now, one of the things that I am thinking about always is where some of the maybe sore spots are, or places maybe not of strength in the piece. So for me, this border is a pretty vulnerable spot. So if we can get these other pieces that we're adding to sort of not distract, but maybe control a little bit of that environment on the edge, that's exactly what we want to do. So I might use some of this white space and begin another thought with this next strip of paper to kind of bring this blue further into the center. Let's try that. So again, I'm going to create that bubble of tape, stick it underneath there, and I might continue with this same flow of energy from this corner up. Okay, apply some pressure, and then we'll add a bubble on the back of this piece of tape. I'm sorry, of this strip of paper, using a piece of tape. And we'll stick it on there. And I might stick this one inside of here. So now if you were to look at it from the front, we've got these two ideas. We've got this really nice back and forth sort of wave-like motion of the first color. And then we've got this second color jumping on the scene, and this color is weaving right into it. That's exactly what we want. On to strip number 3. Create that bubble of tape. Here we are. I might start from this side down here. I see a gap in the paper, and so what I might do is add another piece down here and sort of begin to braid these two sides of the story together. And maybe I'll bring these two together like this. I kind of like the difference in height there. Looks kind of funny from your angle, but I'll show you from far back in just a moment. Okay, cool. So here we are. That's what we've got so far. We've got, again, story of back and forth, and then we've got the story of kind of weaving and growing up into the piece. Let's keep moving. Here we are. I see another couple blank spaces that are white up here in my piece. I don't know where yours are, but I'm going to continue with this motion going upwards. Again, pressing that piece in and layering it in a similar way. Okay, awesome. Oh, this is really fun. I like this one. Maybe it's just the color blue. I love the color blue. That'll do it. Again, we're just going to continue this process. Keep going. If you're doing this art piece along with a friend, give them a piece of encouragement. The waves will end. It will look good soon. Sometimes it's when it's in the middle, it doesn't always feel complete yet, which is makes sense. It's in the middle of the painting, middle of the piece. Again, I'm just filling in some of those holes, grabbing more pieces of tape. So here we are so far. I'm again just continuing to braid these stories together. I see a space over here that could use a little bit of attention. And then of course, I've got a couple other spots that I'm gonna try to fill in. Take a step back, pull your painting away, or maybe have your friend take it and hold it across from you so you can kind of see where some of those areas are, while you have a couple strips left of that same tone to kind of make some adjustments. Okay, out of tape, we're gonna get some more in here. Okay. I know some colleges started back up with classes this week. If that's you, all the best to you. I recommend integrating snacks with class. I've been there, it was not too long ago. And I know that that was a must, especially on those longer days. Okay. So we'll keep weaving these stories together. Being sure to add pressure to get those things, those strips of paper securely really fastened. Pull that one up, try that again. Sometimes you gotta try a couple different things before you find one that you like. That one's okay. All right, not my favorite, but we'll go with it for now. I've got 3 strips left of this color. I might start with one right here that kind of billows up here. Again, a reminder, if you find that some of your strips of paper are jumping off the side of your page, that's a-okay. We'll trim them later. Okay, I still see this spot over here that needs some attention. This is a good time to kind of take a step back, check out where you're at. Yep, still needs a little bit of attention on this side. I'm going to adjust this one again. That one's my trouble spot here. Hopefully yours is going great. All right. I sometimes have to trim a couple of the edges of mine just to be sure that I'm getting the look and the length that I want. Okay, that's all right. Again, you can use connection points wherever they make sense, but sometimes I actually tape my loops inside of each other, and that sometimes fixes the issue. All right, I've got one last one. I'm gonna just gently slide this one up the side to kind of draw away from that last border that I have. Okay. And I found one extra blue strip from the first color, oopsies. So we are gonna add that in to make it just a complete little drawing here. I need a couple more pieces of tape. And we're almost all ready to go here. This is looking awesome. So if you wanted to, you're welcome to grab that last piece of watercolor paper that you did today to add in, but you don't have to. I find sometimes the pieces are good on their own, and 2 colors is enough. I did my first one, the example that I showed you with 2 colors, and I think it looks really, really clean, really neat. So I just added the last of my papers there. Here we are, looking beautiful. It's really fun to see how those tones decide to interact. Okay, so what my last step is going to be is going around and just trimming off these edges so that I have a really clean border amidst all the craziness going on inside. Grab a scissor. Sometimes it's easier actually if you can turn it over because you can actually see where the edge of your paper is. Oh, it's so funny. All of a sudden, some of these things become so hard to see. This one might not be able to do that. Okay. Okay. We're continuing. Just grab these last little borders. I've got some stubborn ones. Hopefully yours are being kinder to you. Great. This one actually might be easier to do from on top. Okay, not perfect, but really, I think a really good example so far of how we've got these 2 colors and these stories and ideas kind of coming together. Again, we were working with a couple verbs. I often have my students brainstorm a couple verbs when they're creating because it's those verbs that help us know where the flow of the piece is coming from and how we're going to bring that to completion. So for me, remember we started with some sort of waves going this way and kind of letting that blue or whatever color you started off with kind of be that gentle base and foundation. And then we added this other darker, deeper blue to kind of be those dreams that weave those ideas together. So here we are. The last step, of course, is to grab a black pen and find a place to sign it. I don't know where on here is a good place to sign it, maybe here. And we are all set to go. Thank you so much for joining me. I have one last thing to read you before we bounce out here. I'm just thinking about how God takes care of all of our needs and
how he brings the different parts of our stories together all in his perfect timing. And in a time where a lot of things feel incredibly misplaced, this passage really comforts me. So it's from Matthew 6, 25. It says, "Therefore I tell you, do not be anxious about your life, what you will eat or what you will drink, nor about your body, what you will put on. Is not life more than food, and the body more than clothing? Look at the birds of the air. They neither sow nor reap nor gather into barns, and yet your heavenly Father feeds them. Are you not of more value than they? And which of you, by being anxious, can add a single hour to his span of life?" Or, I'll just translate that, "And which of you, by being anxious, can take away a single hour of quarantine from your life? And why are you anxious about clothing? Consider the lilies of the fields, how they grow. They neither toil nor spin, yet I tell you, even Solomon in all his glory was not arrayed like one of these. But if God so clothes the grass of the fields, which today is alive and tomorrow is thrown into the oven, will he not much more clothe you, O you of little faith?" It goes on for a little bit longer, but I feel like that's a really great summation of just the ways that God cares for us even in this time. So I hope and pray that this time was encouraging to you. Let me just bless you before you go. God, thank you so much for the gift to be artists and to see the world through your eyes. Lord, we thank you that it is in your perfect care that you care for each of our needs. For the food that we are going to eat and the clothes that we are going to wear, Lord, you take care of those things. Thank you. I pray that we would take our moments of anxiety and we commit those to you in these coming days. And I pray also just for wisdom and discernment for all of the medical personnel who are just laboring so hard in this season. Lord, thank you. And I pray that you would reward them for their efforts. I pray that you give us wisdom for how we can support them. Thank you, God, that your plans are bigger and grander and just different than ours. Because, Lord, we only see the here and the now, but you see all of time. And we thank you just for and just the wisdom that you have, God. We love you. We just want to say that we bless you and that we think you're wonderful. It's in Jesus' name that I pray. Amen. Thank you so much for joining me. If you're coming in on the very end here, I'm Meg. You have just survived quarantine day 10, live from Madrid, Spain. If you are in the States, have a wonderful, wonderful day. If you're in Spain, I hope you have a wonderful afternoon. Take care. Bye-bye.